There's a cat over here. There's a cat over there. And the wrong one died. And the wrong one died.
Welcome to The Wrong Cat Died, the podcast breakdown of the catastrophe. I'm your host, Mike Abrams, and today we have another amazing guest. You might have seen her perform as Rachel Green on the Friends, the musical parody more recently, but before that, she was in the Cats chorus and then a swing covering Grisabella and Joey Lorem on the 6th national tour of Cats. So welcome, Carolyn Bacon. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
I loved the Friends musical. So I was so glad I got to go, and I cannot wait because one of my favorite things to do is compare Cats to different shows, and I've not done Friends yet, so we will get there because I think this one's great. This one will be super fun. But let's start with your history of Cats at the beginning. Like, when did you first see it? Were you obsessed with the 1998 movie? Like, what was your introduction to the show?
Yeah, this is a great question. I feel like I encountered Cats as a young kid and then forgot about Cats entirely. And then the audition came my way, and all of a sudden it was like I was sucked back into the whirlwind of Cats, and now it, kind of changed everything. My best friend growing up was obsessed with Cats, and we certainly, I have memories of like dancing around her living room. She really loved Mr. Mistopheles, so we would do a lot of like singing and dancing to that great tune. I knew Memory. It was a song that I learned to sing like in a 3rd grade voice lesson. But then, like I say, it was sort of like something that was around when I was growing up in the 90s. And then I've kind of a non-traditional background into theater. So I was doing other stuff. I have a pre-med degree, went back to school for singing. And so Cats popped up. It was July 9th. The timeline was nuts. July 9th, I got the audition request for Cats. And by August 9th, I was in Rochester rehearsing. So it was like, oh, Cats. Oh, a Cats tour. Oh, okay. I guess I'm doing the Cats tour.
So you basically, you saw the 1998 movie, but you weren't like, I'm burning through the VHS type of a person.
No, I loved musicals growing up, and Cats was around, but I was a real Julie Andrews fan at that point, like really obsessed. I think I dressed up as Mary Poppins like a couple of times for Halloween, so it's just, that was kind of my focus. Cats was in the mix, and I did grow up dancing, but it wasn't, it was never full obsession, because I know a lot of Cats people, it goes deep. It goes really, it goes real deep.
It goes, exactly. It goes really, well, it's kind of fun too, because I think that's what's cool about this show is I've met a bunch of people, and there are some people that's like, I have burned through the VHS. And there are others was like, I never saw it. And then all of a sudden now I'm in, it's like they're hooked now. But wait, I want to go back to, you're in college, you're pre-med. Like, are you taking organic chemistry, dancing and singing, or are you just like a little bit doing this on the side, but also like, cause that's a very intense study to take that route.
Yes, it is. Yeah. So in a nutshell, long story short, I'd grown up singing and dancing. That type of career wasn't, that was something that you did for recreation. It was extracurricular activities, but not a career. I always really loved science and math. So I went to school. I got a degree. My bachelor's degree is in neuroscience. So I was taking voice lessons on the side, but I took organic chemistry. I took all of those requirements. We had, neuroscience classes as well. I took neuropsych, all that stuff. And how to make it short, I did a study abroad semester in Germany and studied at a music conservatory there. It changed my life. It showed me that I wanted to be a musician and try and see what would happen. So I went back to school. I graduated with my neuroscience degree, and then I went and got a master's degree at San Francisco Conservatory. I was doing sort of the more classical music side of things, but musical theater was just always in my bones from when I was young. It was what I had really grown up and loved. So it basically feels like I circled back. Just like with Cats, I feel like I circled back to this stuff that I really loved as like a young little kid. It just took me a little extra time to get there.
That's so fascinating because I just like, so many people I've met and talked to that are in the world have this like I would say, much more traditional background for it, of where I was like,
Oh, yeah.
you knew from day one that this was going to be the way you're going to do, and that's all you did to work towards it. And I love kind of hearing the almost, not the reverse, but like a very much you in a pre-med, you don't have the time to, like, you have to do the extracurriculars because for the med school application, you gotta be interesting on that. You know, you can't just be a straight A student. And then to hear that pivot, almost, going back to something you grew up doing is really cool.
Thank you. I mean, I remember I would go to voice lessons, and it was the first time in college I was on scholarship, so I could take voice lessons for free. So I was taking private voice lessons for the first time versus, singing in choirs and doing that kind of stuff. I went to public school, did all the musicals and theater kids stuff, improv and all that. But I was taking more serious voice lessons in college, and I would leave my lessons. And for about 20 minutes, I would have this pure, just little pocket of time where all I was thinking about was the music that I had just been singing and, technique that we had been discussing. And it was this beautiful, perfect little moment. I remember, after about 20, 30 minutes, the bubble pops and, oh yeah, I got to go to lab. There's always lab. You always have to go to lab. And I did a thesis in a neuroscience lab. So I was also doing lab work for them. And I remember thinking, oh, I wish I could have this 20 minutes all the time.
Yeah.
And, now I do. So I think it was just little by little, this thing that I had loved, but was never really felt like, oh, that can't possibly work, or that's not in the cards. And it just kept kind of calling back to me. And I feel very lucky that I listened to it and decided to apply to grad schools and get my degree.
Yeah. Amazing.
That totally changed my life.
Yeah. I mean, it's a totally different path. You went from being in a, brain surgeon type of like residency in med school to singing on stage as in a cat costume.
Oh yeah. The cat costume. I mean, that was, I had the opportunity to be on stage at the Keller Auditorium, which is in Portland, Oregon, where I grew up. That was the last stop on our tour. So the last, week of saying goodbye to the Cats tour, I was on stage at the Broadway Theater where I went to go see shows as a little kid. And it was so special. I think especially because it wasn't something that I grew up doing and everybody knew I was going to do that career. It was like kind of this secret little dream that was kept alive for a really long time. And it was really amazing to have people I went to middle school and high school with come to the show and be like, oh my God, I cannot believe that this happened. And I was like, me either.
Yeah. It's
just happy to be here.
It's taking hobby into career, which is like, the versus treating it as career, which is so cool because like you're able to find a way to do that. But I want to go. So let's talk before Portland though. You get this rehearsal or you get this like audition and you go and you join the Cats chorus, but a very quick turnaround. How much, because you're in the chorus first versus like ready to be on the swing, are you in the like storytelling rehearsal process where they go through everything or like, what's that prep look like for you?
Yes. So, the rehearsals start with a couple of days of music. We had our music supervisor, Brian Taylor. So we all sang as an ensemble collectively. And then once we get on the floor in rehearsals, with our resident choreographer, Grace Buckley, who is an incredible dancer and mentor, she taught us the show, and Kim Craven, of course, immediately. So we all started by learning the Jellicle Ball. And even as booth singers, I mean, we were really on Team Swing from the beginning. So we knew that we would have to learn those tracks. And, Brisabella doesn't have a ton of movement, but Jelly Lauren is in the entire show. She barely leaves the stage, and she's doing a lot of dancing. So from the beginning, the swings all line up at the back of the rehearsal space, and just, let me look here, let me like do the movement. And then at the end of rehearsals, sometimes we break out and have then, okay, swings, let's see you in this track and then you in this track. So we were learning the show as dancers from the beginning with everybody else, which was really cool.
Yeah. That's kind of like, it is strange because like I do think about your track of Jelly Lorem and Grisabella. And Grisabella's like 15 minutes, come in, just belt and get off. Like it's a very princess track. It's known, you hear it. But then Jelly Lorem, as you said, is on stage the whole time, dancing the whole time, singing a little bit of a number with Gus. Just totally opposites. So it's like you almost have to prepare for, like if it was just Grisabella, it'd be much easier. It's like, all right, I don't need to learn all those dance numbers. I don't need to learn the ball.
Yeah.
But you have to learn both, the whole thing. And then really the whole show, because you're singing in the booth the whole time too.
Yes. And Jelly Lorem is singing soprano 1. So, and Andrew Lloyd Webber is notorious for writing like just the highest soprano ensemble singing. He loves to get, he loves to get those voices nice and high. So I was, as you say, belting as Grisabella and then singing the soprano 1 track. And for me personally, because I had opera training, I think that really helped me figure out, okay, how do I sing super high in a sustainable way while then also making sure that I'm keeping those like warmer, richer, lower colors of my voice ready to belt. And I was balancing that the entire tour.
Wow.
Which was cool. I mean, I came out of that tour feeling like, oh, I can sing anything. If I can do that 8 shows a week while also being able to deliver a song like Memory, which, as you say, everybody knows that song.
Yeah.
They know what it's supposed to sound like. And the challenges of those 2 tracks simultaneously, it's like, okay, if I can do that, I can handle anything.
Yeah, the Grisabelle part's so interesting for me because, like, obviously my whole take is that I don't think she should be the choice. But when you go to see Cats, not most people, but there's a good chunk of that audience that knows nothing else about it, but that it's people dressed as cats, and you're going to hear Memory. Yeah. And so it's like it's the one thing people are waiting for. Yeah. And they hear Little Memory before intermission, but they're really waiting for like the full song. And so it is a part that like I can't even fathom, like the build up to it and everything for something that's a core part of most people's experience is going to be there. And to switch back and forth, I didn't even think about it from that angle.
Yeah, it's so much of being a performer is the mental game and keeping yourself in a place where you know how can I go on for Jelly Lorem and be on stage and really engaging with pretty much every single other cat who's on stage. I mean, she's such an important community builder throughout the whole show. She's just kind of everywhere. And then how can I also be prepared to sit backstage and wait for this moment that everyone in the audience is waiting for? Like, how do I just make sure that I, as an artist, am prepared to handle that pressure and keep my cool and then deliver the goods?
And high emotion too, like it's supposed to be.
Yeah. Well, that part isn't. For me, that part was never hard to construct because, the way that Chrissie Cartwright talks about Grisabella, I found that all very beautiful and emotionally compelling. And you're kind of isolated from the cast backstage. So you have all this time to kind of feel and the music. I mean, I loved Remark the Cat was actually my favorite Grizz music to sing. I feel like it's this one moment where you get to see her be angry. Mm-hmm. She sort of gets to express that color of her isolation. And I love that stepwise da-da motive when Grisabella's walking on stage. The music really colors that emotionally for you. So by the time you get on stage and you've been backstage waiting for it to go, you're kind of amped up. So I think that, as long as you can channel that effectively into your singing, I think the show kind of gives you a little boost there.
Yeah. Is there any actual, not real animosity, because I'm sure, you're all castmates and you become friends and you're together all the time. But like, when you're Jelly, are you a little angry at the Grizz? Because it's like, all right, I'm dancing, I'm working my tail off here all night. And then you just come in here and get the roaring applause for your 15 minutes.
I think that as you say, there are some people in the audience who are, all they know about Cats is this song that sort of became a pop hit and people are going to be dressed as cats and that's it. But I think what's so special about Cats and the Cats fandom is that people know that Cats is more than just that song. And most like deeper fans of Cats are fans of like Skimbleshanks, you know, and these other cats who have a more sort of like a more elaborate and deeper connection to like the ensemble story, because Cats is really an ensemble piece.
Yeah.
And you know, of course you have people, you know, who love Grids and who love the White Cat, but I mean, even the White Cat, she is like so deeply important to the story of the whole ensemble. So I think I never felt like, I mean, I just always felt like, oh yeah, it's so wonderful to play Jelly because she's so involved in all of these little moments. And it's such a pleasure to get to do that. And then it's also such a pleasure to like get to be, I mean, there's like nothing better than getting to sing memory on a Broadway tour stage. Like that's going to live with me for, you know, forever.
Yeah. It's so interesting to hear you say the split of the people in the crowd, because I've been both sides of it. So the first time I saw it, I was I don't know anything. What am I going to see? Someone just handed me tickets and I'm going to go. And I was like, I didn't even know Memory was in it until I saw, like, I got to that point. I'm like, oh, I know this song. And it was like,
oh my gosh.
You know, like that was where I was when I first walked in. And then I saw the same tour, but this year in January. And I was like, I know everything now. Like I know way too much. And I'm like, all right, I want to see where the twins turn early. I want to see like these things. I'm looking for these things that like I definitely would have never even thought of. So I'm curious, like, what do you think that split is in the audience? Like I was in DC, a couple thousand person like auditorium. Yeah. Is it 50-50? I would assume, and maybe this is naive of me, but I would assume on tour you have like your core deep fandom people that are going to come to a lot of the shows. Yeah. But is that like 10%? Is it 20%? Is it 5%? Is it 50%?
Oh, I think it's way more than that. I think, I mean, we had so many people they would talk about or post about how they had seen Cats 10 times. I mean, people have such deep connections to the show, and there's so many layers. I think the first time you see Cats, you're kind of just trying to get the lay of the land. You're like, what is the plot? It's like, okay, wrong question. That's not what this musical is about, you know? And then by the time you see it a couple of times, like there's all these things to discover. And as you say, it's like, if you're wanting to look deeper on Cats, you can, because there is stuff that you're going to get to. I mean, like the set alone is so beautiful to look at. And, you know, the junkyard, it's like the more you look at the junkyard, the more you realize how beautifully intricate it all is to get these human-sized items on stage with these people dressed as cats. So I mean, I think at least 20% of the audience is like in it, loyal Cats people. Maybe more. It's really hard to say, but I think especially post-pandemic, because I think we were one of the first tours. We were one of the first tours to come out of the pandemic. All the casting happened during the pandemic. Again, that was like a month. I was hired, I think, officially 2 weeks before we left. So that was wild. But being one of the first tours to go out after the pandemic, or I guess still kind of during the pandemic, people were really craving these theatrical experiences again. So I think there was also a lot of buildup of like, oh, we thought we were going to see Cats last year and we didn't get to, and now we get to. And so there's a lot of excitement. So maybe it's that color as well, that we had this kind of special opportunity to like give people Cats again who had been like, we want Cats.
Yeah. There's, I have the tickets from the show that was supposed to come to Indiana in April of 2020. My mom had two tickets and she still has them and handed them to me. And, you know, it was like they haven't been back on the circuit yet. I think they went close to Indianapolis, but you went to like Fort Wayne maybe, or somewhere around there.
Yes.
But it's such an interesting part, because that's a good point. I saw it a year later, so it's like on the second leg of that tour. So I was trying to I definitely looked around because I saw it 2 back-to-back days. So the second day I'm like, all right, there was a couple swings on, which was cool, but I'm also like, nice. What's this crowd look like on a matinee on Saturday or Sunday? I forget which one it was. Yeah. And whenever I've seen a show a couple times, I do like to kind of see how people react, because it's like, if it's their first time and I definitely know where this punchline's coming, or I know this part's coming, like one of my favorite ones is Hades Town, is just like, yeah, you know what this is building up to. It's not a new story. It's based on a true story. And every time it still shocks me how many people are surprised by that ending. So I get enjoyment out of that. But I didn't notice in mine. I felt like I noticed more people that weren't the Cat super fans. Like I saw some, but it felt like a much smaller group.
Yeah, which maybe makes sense because the tour is now in its third year.
Yeah.
And they're actually about to be done. Their last stop is Hawaii. So that's nice for them.
Yeah. Rough.
That they're going to Hawaii on their tour.
Rough place to finish.
Yeah. So I think Cats has like made its rounds now. And like everyone who maybe you got more folks who are new to Cats, but I think there's probably a lot of people who also knew about Cats like in the 80s, but they haven't encountered it since then. And this tour is such a mix of kind of old and new. Yeah. So there's a lot of layers there. So I think the fact that people are like discovering Cats anew or revisiting it is also like kind of fun because there's things you don't expect. And
I have heard from some of those older fans, I call them the OG fans, and some of them are not current fans of the new choreography. Like they grew up with what they know, and they're like, that's it. How dare you make any change? Type of person.
Totally.
As a sports fan, I related to like they're the ones that like said baseball shouldn't change. Like they're the ones that are just like baseball is perfect as is. Do not evolve whatsoever. And it's like I'm a huge baseball fan, so I relate to that. Like the pitch clocks and everything going on.
It's I'm like the games are jumping along now. I'm like, this is nice, but it's also that relationship between pitcher and hitter is totally different with the pitch clock. Anyway, not to.
Yeah, we just lost half of our listeners right there.
People just
we'll just fast forward 15 seconds and you'll be good.
We're done.
We're back.
We're done with baseball.
But okay, so I want to talk a little bit about what you were told for your backstories. Like, what are the relationships? Yes. Obviously, we've gone into a lot of details on this, but is there anything that kind of surprised you or that was unique when you were hearing Jelly's story or Grisabella's story, or even just anything where it was like, hey, this is a relationship you should be playing that you are like, wait a second, no way. Because it seems like there's a lot of debates, and you in rehearsal get to hear at least the interpretation at the moment, or what they kind of give you as you get to add to it.
Totally. I mean, I think Jelly was there's a really easy way into that character, again, because the choreography has her so involved with everybody. She is like, she's Gus's helper. She's around. She's very sweet. All the cats love her. And Kaylee Jamison, who was playing Jelly Lorem on that tour, really like went full tilt into that. And she created a lot of like beautiful sort of extra movements and little moments to connect. And so I feel like I just followed in her footsteps and just enjoyed kind of the simplicity of Jelly being one of the older cats in the group, but connecting with all the youngins. And she gets this really sweet moment with Gus. So that felt like a very, I don't want to say easy isn't quite the right word, but it was just a straightforward character build. Mm-hmm. With Grizz, I don't know if anyone's talked about this on an episode. They probably have, because you've probably heard it all. But a couple of things really struck me about her character. One is that the poem of Grisabella the Glamour Cat was something that was not in the original book of Old Possums. Mm-hmm. It was found by Victoria Elliott and brought to the table by her. And originally, T.S. Eliot thought it would be too dark for the book. So she found this poem and brought it in, and like that creates such a beautiful color. So that's one thing that stands out. Again, you probably have heard this.
Well, so not only have I heard about it, but it's the core. My argument's always been, and I'm getting a little bit lighter on it as I went to more recently. I was like, I don't think children should see the show. Like, it's very dark. There's a lot of like Macavity and Demeter's potential backstory, and there's like, what is Grisabella doing before she comes back, and what's happening with Victoria on stage? Like, I mean, it's a coming of age story for her. The balls and orgy, like, there's just so much there. Now, I get it's going over every kid's head, but it's the teenager group, it's probably wildly confusing because you're probably recognizing some of it, but not fully getting it. And then even as an adult, I'm sitting there going like, that they're basically doing it on stage at Cat's Gossip.
They are.
Right?
Yeah.
So when I learned that story, I'm like, wait a second. The author thought this was too dark for kids. And we're going to make this the cornerstone of the musical that we're going to have children from all over the world for 40 plus years come see. It just validated my argument.
Yeah, I totally hear that. Yeah. One of the things that I loved about working with Chrissie Cartwright, and you do get to work more with her one-on-one as a Grizz cover because you get to be in those rehearsals and, kind of listen. And we were lucky that we got to also ask some questions and like talk with her. She's very explicit about that stuff. She's very clear about how Grizabella, the way she talks about it is Grizabella is sort of sees herself in the young white cat and how she, wanted to see the world and go out and, gets involved in Macavity. And the show's been a little bit reinterpreted with the 2016 revival, making Grizabella a younger cat, which is, I think, really interesting. I see it now, but I do think there's a little bit of a loss of having that role played by an older woman, because I think the way in society that we often, push aside older women, or we don't focus on them, or we don't value them as much. I think there is something about that in the original story that was really beautiful and interesting to dig into. Obviously, I'm glad that I got to play Grizz, but I was thinking, I was going to say one other thing that really struck me about the character of Grizabella is Chrissie would talk about how on the way to the theater, when they were going to rehearse the original production, there was this homeless woman who was, living in the neighborhood outside of the theater, and they all got to know her. And she, was poor and destitute, but she always had these beautiful nails. And so, Grizabella, part of her costume is these gloves. Again, you've probably heard this before, but she has these gloves with these red nails, and it's this homage to this woman who was real, who became this character influence, and kind of, so much of the show is about seeing, who are we judging and who are we, who are we seeing in what way, and like, who do we allow to have dignity and who are we tolerant of? And just the fact that was coming from a real person, that was always very special to me.
Yeah, that's fascinating. I don't think I've heard that story about the homeless lady. So that's new.
Yeah, and her perfect nails. She always had perfect nails. I was just, there's so much about the development of the show that, I wish I could have been a fly on the wall in that original production, when for the first month of rehearsals, all they did were these kind of like theater games and exercises to get into Felinity. I mean, we had a couple days of Felinity, and that felt like, whoa, this is kind of crazy, but we're all into it. We're all just going for it. Like, how cool. But to have a month of that is sort of astounding. And I think, to your point about the OG fans of the Cats choreo and kind of the new direction that the choreography is taking, I love the new choreography. And I do recognize that part of what is so provocative and radical about the original production is her vision for these cats and how they move. And you don't get to keep that vision 100% when you're melding it with something else. So I see both sides of that. And I think there are definitely reasons to value the original choreography, but it's also cool that somebody got to put a new spin, and especially a famous choreographer who, is connecting us with really, contemporary works of theater. So it was cool to work on that.
It's an interesting for me because I never, my original is the 1998 movie is all I have access to, which is what's on YouTube. And then I have seen Andy's version 4 times now, so it's like I've seen the new version, it's the only version. So I've actually only seen a younger Grizabella every time. And that's part of, I know some of what clouds my judgment and my decision anyways, of like where this whole thing came from. We're going to take a quick break, and then we'll be back for more of The Wrong Cat Died. All right. I want to shift gears because I am so excited because I am a Friends super fan in the sense that I love sitcoms. It's actually my biggest. I've said this 1,000 times on this podcast, but the thing I love most on TV is predictable A/B storyline sitcom story, which Friends is one of the masterminds of. Just brilliant.
Yes.
2 different lines coming together at the end and neat and tidy closing. It's the best background noise. It's on TV almost all day still. It's on TBS
Always.
all day. It's on Nick at Night all night. It is literally on my TV probably half the day if I'm working from home. Just muted, but just background noise.
Yeah.
So when I got to come see you all, I knew I was going to be not only am I going to get every reference, but I'm excited to see which ones you choose beyond just the big one. Everyone knows on a break and pivot and some of those things. But I'm what are some of the smaller ones you're going to go after? And if you're a Friends fan, it is a blast because it is so funny. Your mannerisms as Rachel were spot on.
Thank you.
And so I had so much fun, and I cannot wait because I love trying to compare Kat's characters to Friends characters. So before we do that though, I want you to tell me what was it like getting into the show, trying to pick up the mannerisms, knowing the jokes. Were you a huge Friends fan? Or I feel like at this point everyone was somewhat of a fan, but what was your level of knowledge going into that, getting this role?
Yeah, so I originally auditioned. Friends also happened for me very quickly. Because I think that's how this business works. It's you're spending all this time thinking that you know what you're targeting, and then all of a sudden something comes out of left field and you just have to stay open to it and be okay, I guess I'm auditioning for the Friends musical this week. Great. Yeah. So I went in to audition for The Swing. So I prepared a Phoebe, a Monica, and a Rachel.
Wow.
And in both of my auditions, I was doing all 3 of those characters. And in my callback for The Swing, they said, hey, the role of Rachel is opening up. Are you interested? And I was yeah, sure. I just heard about this week. So as I went to see the show, it really made me laugh. And I was okay, let's do this. So, and now I think as I've revisited Friends more, it's such fun to play Rachel because I grew up watching the show, but I was not. I knew Rachel Green's in high school. I was not. Yeah. I was not that girl. It was not me. And I think it's easy to, poke fun at Rachel. But it's also such a pleasure to sort of put my judgment or what I think I know about her aside and go back. I'm rewatching Friends right now. And, part of the reason to watch is to pick up all her little, she's got all these amazing physical gestures that I picked up from the show. She has such a distinct way of talking and expressing herself. And she's also very proud. And I think one of the really fun things about playing her is seeing her you can see her as a, boring stereotype of a popular girl, or you can kind of flesh out her character and see her as this really proud and loyal woman who is standing up for herself, and she always speaks her mind. She loves what she loves, and getting into expressing her has just been really, really fun.
Yeah, it's fun to watch. It's fun to see. I love that you all blurred the lines of the show and also the performers. So I love that some of the famous people that are in it are just called out as their famous people, as named. Yes. Some of the jokes about that are about their actual lives and not just the Friends.
Yes.
And then the music is so funny. It's a great mix in. So I loved every moment of it.
Thank you for saying that. Thank you for coming. We love, we love doing the show. The group is an amazing group of people, and we're really, really having fun doing it. It's it feels like an extension of, I did improv in school, and it feels like an extended SNL sketch.
Yeah,
sort of that it's a loving roast. It's we love this thing. but we're also roasting it. And as you say, we're kind of roasting, like SNL has a great, I think Weekend Update segment from a couple years ago with someone doing a Rachel Green impression that I definitely studied for my, for my audition. And it's like, it's so easy to kind of roast the character and the actor simultaneously because that show totally changed their lives. It totally changed how each of them, the type of roles that they were offered later. I mean, like, especially Jennifer Aniston, like she's iconic.
Yeah.
And her as Rachel is iconic. It's sort of impossible to separate them. So it's been really fun to like get to do my spin on that.
It's so fun. All right, let's cast the cats as friends.
Oh
characters.
my gosh.
So
I thought we were going to do this, but I did not think about it in advance because I just want to see what comes to me. So
I think that's almost the better way to do it. Because I've done a few of these where I know the material, like I don't know the material as well. And I'm like, hold on, I got to do some like research. I'm like, all right, who are all these people and what are they? And then it's like this one, I'm like, had friends on before we jumped on today. It's like, had it on TBS this morning in the background.
I love that.
And so it's like, this is what I knew. So we could do this too. There's obviously the main 6 characters who we'll get to. I do think it's fun to cover a couple of the side characters. So do you want to cover some
Gunther
of those
for
first?
Sure. We got to talk about
Okay,
Gunther,
let's do the side characters first and we'll get to the main 6.
Okay. Yes.
Gunther, who do you have?
Oh my gosh. I mean, the guy who plays Gunther is like so funny. I think I have, I think I would make him like a Carbuckety or like a cat who gets cut in some of the productions, but he's there and he should be part of the ensemble, but he like didn't make it on our tour. I think there's like something funny about seeing him as a side cat. What do you have?
Corkbat. I have him as a twin because he's kind of like quiet and around and, like they cut to him a lot where he's just like a reaction. And so I feel like that's one of the twins. Also, I do think the twins get cut every once in a while on tours. So it's like, to your point, maybe that is where he fits. But that's where I had him.
I like that, especially because he's like quiet and always watching.
Yeah.
Which is very in vibe with the twins. Yeah, I like that.
Okay. What about, let's do Mike. Let's Paul Rudd.
Oh, Paul.
Isn't that his character name? That's his character name, right?
Yes. No, I haven't. I'm in the early. I was like, that's in early Friends. Like what?
I think this one's hard because I didn't see a direct line.
This one is hard. I'm like, he sort of feels like I'm like I don't want to use some of the like obvious fun-loving cats that are like coming to mind. Like he's very he's sort of like a Peter or like one of the just one of the like nice cats who's like in the opening and then disappears entirely. You're like just a little call out.
So I thought the same thing, but I was like, I always forget, is it Alonso's the one that's a little cocky? So I thought maybe it's Tumble Brutus. Like it's one of those two to me. Like it's one of the younger dancing in the beginning.
Tumble Brutus is such a great pick because he's like a kitten and he's like fun and rambunctious, but he's not like going full Mungo Jerry energy, which we like obviously have to save. For one of the main.
I agree.
Friends. I like that. Yeah.
Okay. What about Dr. Burr, Tom Selleck?
Oh my God, Tom Selleck has a really great moment in the Friends parody musical.
Very much does.
I mean, oh my God, yeah. I got to think about like actual. I mean, I think actual Tom Selleck like on the show as Dr. Burke. Like I just think of Bustifer like. Because he's such a proper gentleman, and he also like, he's very kindly. I actually could also see Gus because I'm forgetting the name. Who's the boyfriend of Monica's that's played by Jon Favreau? later. Who, like,
he's the billionaire.
the rich guy. The billionaire. Because that's kind of Bustafer energy.
Yeah.
So if that's Bustafer energy, then Gus,
Pete,
Peter. Tom Selleck.
His name is Pete.
Is maybe
his name is Pete, I think.
Pete. Yes, you're right. So I think Pete is maybe actually full Bustafer, and Dr. Burke for me is like giving lovely Gus energy, like Gus before he's like a little earlier in his prime.
Yeah, I think Gus is Tom Selleck and Bustafer is Dr. Burke, because the Dr. Burke whole storyline is a little strange in my opinion. It's like a little weird, a little creepy, and like I remember even when it happened, I'm like, oh, you got Tom Selleck, like this is such a big name, like you run with it. But then it's like the party where they're at their parents' house and it's like their best friend they don't know.
So weird.
It's weird. And that's what I feel with Bustafer Jones. I think some of that's because I read Bustafer Jones as going to gentlemen's clubs as the American gentlemen's clubs and not the British gentlemen's clubs. And so I'm like, my interpretation of Bustafer Jones is like, oh, this is a much different cat than I think what was actually written. So that's how I do feel about Dr. Burke.
Oh, I like that.
Okay, we got one more side character. We got to do Janice.
Oh, yes. Oh, Janice. Oh, I love Janice in the parody musical. I think that, I mean, the first thing that came to mind was Rump, because of her like energy. Like Rump is such a playful character, and something that I love about Janice is that she just like is unapologetically herself. So in a way, she's like maybe almost giving Bomb Ballerina energy as well. Yeah, I'm a big Janice fan. I love Janice.
Yeah,
but there's something about Rump that's like, Janice is a little like she's a little off the rails, and I think Rump's a little off the rails.
Rump's a good answer. Bomb Ballerina was too like confident, sexy, like knows it versus like I think Janice is confident and knows it and feels that way, but it's like it's meant misplaced to be a very different. Yeah, yes. I think we're gonna use this character somewhere else, but I saw little Jenny Anydots of the like. I kind of comes in, is very loud, has their moment, like is involved in a lot of the stuff going on. So that was
and like very like telling everyone what to do energy, like she does, when she's parading around with the mice and the cockroaches, and she's just like I think that's a great answer actually. I love and with the outfit change, because Janice is very flashy.
Yes.
So yeah, I think that's I love that actually. I love her as Jenny.
Let's go to the main six now, and I'll start with the one that I think is Jenny. It is Monica for me. But do you have someone else for Monica?
No, I was gonna put I put Monica as Jenny because she's so like fastidious and like everything just so.
I do think if we were ignoring gender, or I mean they're cats, so it's a little different, but I think there's some skimble shanks in her too. Like very organized, on time.
If you're saying that we can ignore gender, which we like totally should because they're cats anyway.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of like obsessed with the idea of doing gender bent cats. Like I think there's a whole world to explore there that could be like really amazing. Skimble Shanks. I think you're totally right because Skimble Shanks is so like his whole attitude is like when he's doing that song, like he's singing this song about how like everything needs to run on time, but then he's like sleeping on the job in that same number. Which I think is like the best when Monica is like, she has that spirit of like everything has to be this way, but then she's also like kind of nuts and everybody else knows that she's nuts. So that combination, that is like full Skimble Shank energy to me.
What about Chandler?
Chandler to me is Mungo Jerry.
Okay, yeah,
in his like provocative, goofball energy. Who did you have?
I had the same thing. I just thought that was I didn't. It was a hard one because I thought maybe you could go. Like I felt a little bit. I think I struggled with the evolution of Chandler and then what happened to, what happened with his life, like with Matthew Perry. And so I'm like, I don't know where this goes. But I think Mungo Jerry, if you like, especially if you think about the early seasons of Chandler, does feel
Yes.
very like just all over the place, but in a energetic, manic type of a way. And that does
Yeah.
feel like Mungo Jerry.
There might be like a, there's some theories that like, like the Macavity backstory is like very,
Ooh.
murky. And it's like, well, maybe Chandler is like early Macavity. And then as we see Matthew Perry kind of like go to the dark side. So does Macavity. Maybe that's like too much, but there could be something there for like the deep fans.
If we keep going down if there was 10 more years of Friends, so we would have a Macavity angle.
Yeah, we would get to it. That'd be very dark.
What about Phoebe?
Oh my God, Phoebe is really hard. I actually a little bit now that I've put Monica as Skimbleshanks, there is something about Jenny Anyduts who she's like a little kooky. And her like kooky energy. Like there's not. I'm trying to think of who else is like really silly because Phoebe she wasn't like a Rumple teaser to me because she's not really naughty. She's like kind of kooky. So there's maybe like a little bit of a Jelly Lorem vibe. Like Jelly Lorem spends all of Cats like taking care of everyone else. But like when Jelly Lorem is alone, just like hanging out, I think she's like kind of a nerd and kind of a little wacky. Like, so I could see like a Jelly Lorem angle. Those kind of two stuck out to me.
I have pieces of 3 of Cats. So I think there's the history of like her mom and twin and everything was Demeter for me. Because I think you could have like it's a very like troubled upbringing and background. I think I had a Tantamile, just like a little all over, like out there, but sensing stuff before. And
yes. That's good. That's good. Because Phoebe's like,
she's always doing something like that. And then I was like, there's probably it's either Etc. or Syllabub or like one of the kittens where it's like, there's a little bit of energy, but also not, I think, as big of your main like character. Like there's less of the storyline. So that was where I went.
Yeah. Syllabub is a really good one actually, because she is like, she has the silly kitten energy, but she also is kind of touched in the production, and we see all these moments where Syllabub is like touched or kind of like struck by something, and then she like sings this, and she sings all the little songs the way that Phoebe's like coming out, like the way that Syllabub comes out with Daylight is kind of like the Smelly Cat of and Smelly Cat. I mean, Smelly Cat. The fact that there's a cat connection in there is very fun.
Okay, we've got 2 left. Ross.
I know these are like honestly the hardest. Ross was really...
Oh, wait. No, sorry. I missed Joey.
Oh, yeah. We missed Joey. Joey for me is like Tugger.
Yeah.
But Tugger when he's being nice.
Yeah. I had him Tugger. I was just like... You could see him being a little dumb, but also just like thinks everyone loves him. Yeah. Okay. Now we can go to Ross.
Yeah. Ross is really hard because it's like, who are the like mopey cats? Like that's sort of the best. I think David Schwimmer, honestly, is doing some of the greatest acting on Friends. He's so, like, there's so much physical comedy. He's so funny. I didn't, like, really settle.
I can tell you who I have.
Yeah, tell me who you have.
I have Monkish Trap and Old Deuteronomy. Like, the two of them are, like, a little bit serious, but want to be more involved, like, in the all the stuff going on. I also do think like Ross's storylines are connected with everybody. Like he's not the glue of it all, but he's the one that's definitely like, it's his sister, it's his old girlfriend, it's his college roommate. And totally. I do think Monk is like a little an older, kind of narrator-ish. And so you've got that same thing where it's like, they're the ones kind of pending most of this if you have it. So that's where I thought.
Yeah, Monkey Strap is totally, now that you mentioned that, I hate to say that I didn't like remember Monkey Strap. It's hard to, because Monkey Strap, as you're correct, he's like kind of the glue that holds the story together. He's also kind of he's the one who's kind of trying to follow in Old Deuteronomy's footsteps.
Yeah.
He's sort of trying to be the most professional of the cats.
Yeah.
I think Monkey Strap is like is such a great, I'd never really thought about the storyline, like how everything is kind of tied to Ross. But now that you mention it,
They allude to it in one of the episodes because they talk about how Phoebe's like the one that would be cut out because she doesn't have a connection like near to the rest of them. And it's like everybody else, it's like Phoebe and Joey are the two that don't have the like clear connection. But Joey was like the roommate of Chandler, and Phoebe, I don't even remember how they really integrate Phoebe in.
I don't either, honestly.
But yeah, so that's kind of the one I thought. Now we got to do Rachel because
I love that.
This is your bread and butter here. Who do you have?
I know. Weirdly, I have Cassandra.
Oh, interesting.
Because
I see that though.
Because Rachel is like, she's definitely a pretty girl. She loves to shop. Like she loves like her nice things. And Cassandra's very like, you know, a proper, like beautiful, you know, maybe Cassandra was like a rich lady's cat who like kind of found her way to the junkyard. And I was thinking about like, Rachel sometimes gives Bomb energy and she sometimes gives Demeter energy, but she's not quite, well, she is pretty fiery. So I think it was a little torn between like the sides of her. Rachel definitely has a Jekyll and Hyde kind of personality where she can be really sweet and then she can be like, what? And totally change on a dime. So I think she's like kind of giving Bomb and she's kind of giving Cass.
Those are,
for me.
I think those are perfect. I had the Bomb for sure. I had a meaner version of the other side of her, which was a little, I could argue a Grisabella. Like if you take her down a darker path and then bring her back, you know, like there is a little bit of like, you know, at the end, I could see that, you know, so, but I agree.
Yeah. Ooh, I like that. It's almost like, you know, if you look at like, you know, Baby Grizz, like, or who, if you sort of like rewind in your head, like if I rewind back from who Grisabella was to who she might have started out as in the tribe. Yeah. Like kind of giving, yeah, I can totally see that parallel. I was like, as someone who, I was like, I can't be so obvious as to be like, oh, I play Rachel and she's Grizz because I like Grizz. I was like trying to think outside the box for myself.
Totally.
But yeah, I totally dig that. Oh my gosh. I'm probably going to keep thinking about this for a while and kick myself on the choices.
I'm going to have it on the background. There's going to be somebody that pops in the character and be like, oh my God, what about this person? I didn't even think about that. That's them. Like,
yeah, I want to hear some deep fans. Yeah. That intersection of like iconic 90s, like culture. People who love Friends and people who love Cats would love to hear some other theories about who the Friends as Cats are.
Send them our way.
The Friends are very Jellicle. I find them as a community to be like very, very Jellicle. So
love that.
I think it worked.
Let's do some very quick rapid fire.
Yes.
What is your favorite? If you were going to play any character for one night in Cats, which one would you want to go on as?
I think Tugger.
Just go out and have a ball.
I mean, if I could be Bomb and Demeter, I'd love that song. But I think Tugger. If I was really going to get to like be one of the cats, I think I would want to be Tugger.
Nice. Who are your favorite and least favorite cats in the show, character wise?
Oh my gosh, it like kind of changes depending on who you're playing.
I'm asking you. Like you as an individual.
Like
forget
my
Grizz or
favorite
Jelly.
cats when I'm watching the shows. I mean, I love Mr. Mistopheles and I love Skimbleshanks. Like when you're watching the show and Mr. Mistopheles happens, you're like, this is the greatest cat of all time.
Yeah.
I love that number. My least favorite cat? That's like such a hard question because they're all like, they all have their like spot. I feel like Alonzo doesn't get enough development. So I'm choosing him, but only because I'm thinking of the guy who played him on tour had the most beautiful like legs and extensions. Vinny just is the most beautiful dancer. So I'm like, it's not.
No, you gotta take the person out of it. You're taking the person.
Take the person out of it and his beautiful legs out of it. I think Alonzo just like wasn't giving
It's
It
Peter
wasn't
for
giving
me.
enough for me.
It's Peter.
Well, Peter, like nobody even knows about Peter. So
People know about Peter.
people know. Especially with this podcast. People know.
Yeah. Favorite song?
McCavity.
That's my answer right now too. My answer does change every once in a while, but it's been that answer for a while.
Yeah.
Okay. We're at the moment, you got to play Grisabella and Gus's caretaker. So you're covering two of the most common answers. But
I know.
I want to hear, what is your answer? Are you going to defend Grisabella, or are you going to defend Gus, or are you going to defend somebody else as your Jellicle choice?
Well, yeah, this is a hard question. The first time I went on as Jelly and we got to the moment of the Jellicle choice, I remember locking eyes with John Bowe, who was amazing as Gus. And I felt so heartbroken that he had not been chosen. I will never forget it. It was a spontaneous emotional reaction. I was just like, this is wrong. Gus should be the one who goes. So I think that's like sort of it just feels like Gus and his number like really earned him the Jellicle choice. Again, I think if Grisabella was played by an older cat, it would be interesting. I think it's a little bit of a stronger fight in a way. That being said, when you play Grisabella and that moment happens and you ride up to the Heaviside Layer, it really does feel like the right thing is happening to tell the story that you want to tell. So I do see it both ways. And I also think there's a little part of me that's like, Skimble's the Jellicle choice. Like he's so beloved.
All right. So if I'm marking down your vote, because I do keep track.
Oh my God, I know I had to choose one.
You've picked three.
I know I did.
Who are you choosing for this year? They can be next year and the year after.
Okay. I think for this year I have to choose Gus.
Awesome.
Like just based on that spontaneous reaction that I had, I will never forget that. I gotta give it up for Gus for this one. But I love you, Grizz. I really do.
I love it. Anytime it's not Grizz, I'm happy. So
yeah. For you, I'll choose. Mark me down as Gus.
I've been wondering how many people have most people, I'm sure, haven't thought about this except for in the Cats world and the super fans and the people doing the show. But over time, I'm getting more non-Grisabella answers. Like, am I influencing it, or has it always been this split? And it's just like now someone's asking the question.
I think you're influencing it a little bit because you don't really stop and think about it until you're like, wait, what even is the Jellicle choice? What is the Heaviside Layer? Like, you have to kind of go deep on that. And once you do, you're like, wait, now that I'm thinking about this, why is it Grisabella? Which I do get. I don't know. I'll always be torn, but you can mark me as Gus.
The hard-hitting journalism here at the Wrong Cat Died.
Yeah.
Asking the questions nobody else is willing to ask.
Nobody else. Yeah.
Well, this has been amazing. How can people stay in touch with you on social media and see friends and everything?
Oh my gosh, yes. I am on Instagram at Carolyn.Bacon, bacon like breakfast. I have a website, Carolyn and Bacon. You can get tickets to Friends through that. I would love for people to come see this Friends musical. It is so much fun. FriendsOffBroadway.com is their website. And I just did a big solo show last week, but I'll be, I'm in New York and perform regularly around the city. In addition to Friends, I do some jazz and cabaret singing. So yeah, just follow on socials, and I'll keep keep everyone updated on what we're up to.
Yeah, we'll link everything. I will plus in a recommendation on the Friends. It's an intimate theater, so it's a really cool experience because you get to really experience the show. And it was so fun, and especially if you watch Friends at all or know it, you're gonna have a blast.
Oh, thank you. Yes, come see us.
Thank you for being here, And thanks everyone else for listening to this episode of The Wrong Cat Died, the podcast breakdown of the catastrophe. To follow along, you can subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, or anywhere else to listen to podcasts. Follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok at The Wrong Cat Died, or check out our website, thewrongcatdied.com.